All right. So 5 years ago, I was a miserable woman. I really was. I was in a broken marriage, and I knew I needed to get a divorce. However, I was petrified. I was with this man for 20-something years, and I kept thinking, who would I be in the middle of my life with a divorce afterwards? I built my whole life around this relationship, around my family. So instead of taking care of my situation and dealing with it, I did everything possible to stay busy. I was exhausted. I was so busy. And at night, I would sit on my sofa, and I would think and drink some more and think. I don't know how good the thinking was with all that drinking, but I was thinking. And I kept thinking about everything I would lose if I got divorced. You know, it was supposed to be my happily ever after. But when the castle comes crumbling down all around you, you know that it's not your happily ever after. But I continued this for over a year. I mean, I literally did not take responsibility. I was waiting for something outside of myself to swoop in and save me, but no one was going to come save me. I need to do this for myself. And I sat around feeling bad for myself. It was a never-ending cycle of victimhood. It really was. I was mad, I was blaming, I was resentful, and I just started to despise myself. I really did. I was suffering inside because I knew what I needed to do, and I didn't do it. But my higher self had my back. So little by little, I started to have these aha moments, and I'm going to share 3 major ones with you, but I had a lot of them. And the first aha moment I had, I'll start over here. So the whole spectrum of thoughts that I had, this end of the spectrum was, I cannot get divorced, I'm petrified, and I'm not even capable. The opposing end of the spectrum was, I'm getting divorced, and I'm doing it successfully, and I'm going to be happy afterwards. So I started down here. My first aha moment was about my daughter. You know, as a mother, you're always worried about what divorce will mean for your children. And I said to myself, a brilliant question, I said, well, what would you tell your daughter to do? And the first thing I thought was, well, I would tell her to get her stuff and I'll help her. And I would tell my daughter, choose yourself first. Your happiness and your well-being and your life is what counts. And that's your responsibility. So it was so easy for me in this hypothetical scenario to give her permission. But for some reason, I could not give myself permission to do the same thing. You know, as a parent, as a mother, we often forget the importance of our own journey, that it's our responsibility. So I said to myself, all right, well, what if I did choose my well-being first? What would that mean for her? And then I said, well, it would mean I'd put my own oxygen mask on first so I could take care of her. I would be a better mother because I was not the mother I was supposed to be in this situation. In the middle of this broken relationship, my emotions were all over the place. In addition, I would be giving my daughter permission by example to choose herself first, to choose her own happiness first in her own life. And I was okay with that. So my second aha moment, I was in a parking lot looking at the sign that said, Imagine on it. And I had seen this sign a lot, but for some reason it hit me differently this time. And what I thought was, you know what? Imagine if I could get a divorce. Imagine if it was successful, and imagine if I was happy afterwards. So we know everything starts with imagination, so that was a good sign. Everything seemed to be the glass half full now instead of empty. So I was headed this way. My last aha moment, we'll call it an evening of surrender. And by surrender, I mean I stopped thinking because I'm a thinker. So when I stopped thinking, I allowed myself to have a new awareness. It was this opening inside of me. It was this sense of grounding and peace and strength. It was love. It was this feeling of consciousness. It was the authentic me. I felt it. I knew it. And in that moment, I also realized, you know what? I'm not my stuff. All this time I had been contemplating everything I would lose in marriage, but I'm not the new house or the car. I am not my identity or the roles I've been playing. I'm not these circumstances. I'm so much more than all of that. I realized my true identity, my authentic self, that I was energy, that I was love, and I was full of potential, and I could take all of that with me and move on. I knew that I had all of my wisdom to bring with me, my experiences, therefore everything that I had learned from those experiences. My own gifts and talents were still mine, my own self-love. I kept thinking about things I would lose, but what about what I might gain? I might gain more self-worth, more self-love. I might gain more integrity. You know, there's a saying that you're always one decision away from a totally different life, and I was at that point. This was that one decision. So, what if in the unknown that I've been fearing so much was actually my best life ever? You know, you never know. So at this point, I knew I needed to choose myself. I really did. And to top it off, my husband brought home a gift for me. And this just validated the whole thing. So he brought a gift, and it was at the very peak of our unhappiness. And the gift was a plaque. And the plaque said, "Happiness is an inside job." Okay, so imagine, you're miserable in your marriage, and your husband brings this home to you. You know I want to hit him over the head with it, right? But instead, I smiled, and I said, "I guess you better get to work." Sarcasm is so much better. It's so sweet. But that was just a sign. I knew, I was like, it's time to go. So I did. I chose myself first. I chose my own self-worth and my own love, and I executed a conscious divorce. So what's a conscious divorce? Well, a conscious divorce is a divorce executed with mindfulness, with awareness. It's a divorce where you have a strategy, a plan, you know, you're thinking, and you're also having compassion and kindness for everyone, the whole entire family, because divorce is not just about you, it affects the whole family. So even though I did execute a conscious divorce successfully, it hurt. I mean, I was heartbroken. You're not with someone for 20 years and your heart does not break. My heart was broken. And in addition, you know, my mind was so confused to have the one person I always went to be the one person I can't now. That will really mess you up. So, and I'm still healing. 5 years later, I'm still healing. But I learned that you heal in layers. That's what I learned. And I learned that I'm not just healing from the divorce. I mean, I'm healing from way back. Because once you go in to heal, you go in deep. So you're saying, thanks, Mom and Dad. You know, thanks to all your ancestors, but you know what? I'm healing myself. It's stopping here. So 5 years, and I'm healing my mental, my physical, my emotional body, my self-esteem. I've learned a lot. Oh, and plus I had to forgive. But you know what? I did not have to forgive my ex-husband. I needed to forgive myself. I need to forgive myself for giving away my own power in my life. You know, I need to forgive myself for actually getting to the point where I believed my own worth was attached to my stuff, to my identity. So I did. I need to forgive myself for all of that. But I learned a lot of tools as well. I used affirmations throughout my entire divorce. They were key. They were a focal point where I could stay positive, and I would switch them out and use different ones for different phases of the divorce. In addition, I listened to so many podcasts and read so many books about healing and spirituality. I journaled like crazy. I wrote about so many things that it ended up becoming the principles in the Conscious Divorce book that I wrote. And then lastly, you cannot underestimate just releasing some energy. So a good cry, a cry of tears, but also a cry of rage, because I was mad, you know, but you don't want to do this. You don't want to be in Target and decide that's when you're going to get triggered and have a cry of rage, which I did, because when you're like, and everyone scatters, I got to the front of the line, but it was embarrassing. I'll do it in private next time, but you can't help it sometimes. So all of this I'm going through, and I realized, you know what? This is the university of adversity. Like, holy cow, I'm learning so much about myself, about life. You know, I listened, because life is always trying to teach you something, but you do just have to listen. So when you go through something, if you do it with consciousness, with awareness, you can learn from your mistakes, you can learn from your troubles. And they say that there's 10% of your life, 10% of an adversity is what you have to work with. Really, 90% of the whole ordeal is how you deal with it. So how I responded to my adversity was more important than the adversity itself, actually, because that dictated how the rest of my story would go. So even though I consciously chose to end that version of my happily ever after, I did. For every ending of a story, there's always a new beginning. And I was starting my new story. And I actually came up with a new happily ever after, a true happily ever after that I realized. And I have a formula for it, which I'm going to share with you. It's called CPR. So it stands for choose yourself first, pass by fear, and reveal true happiness. Now, literally, I did need to use CPR after the divorce. I mean, you need to use that to restart your heart and restart love for yourself and for life again. But let's look at choose yourself first. I spoke about that a little bit already, about putting your own oxygen mask on first so that you can help others. Love yourself first so you can love others. And of course, people are going to say, that sounds a little selfish, doesn't it? Well, I challenge you and I say, well, who else is responsible for your life? If you're not going to love yourself and take care of yourself first, who else is going to? And plus, my definition of it is that I love and choose myself first so I can give, so I can serve. Because you can't give what you don't have. So that's my version of choose yourself first. Choose yourself first also means, surprise, it's not just I'm first for the manicure or I'm first for the vacation. Choose yourself first means you're responsible for everything that has to do with yourself. It's responsibility, that's what it is. So you're taking responsibility for your own thoughts, your beliefs, your own emotions, your attitude, how you show up in life. You're responsible. You're responsible for your own actions. You are responsible for your own happiness, if we only knew that. In addition, you're blaming no one for anything. No more blaming. You're taking responsibility for everything in your life because what I learned was that blame equals disempowerment. When you blame someone for something, this is what you do. You basically say, thank you, I blame you for this, and by the way, here's my power over that. That's what you're doing. So when you take responsibility for yourself, instead of blaming somebody, you actually have power over that. So power and responsibility are equal to each other. And I've learned all of this. And this is difficult. This is not easy. No one wants to take that time to look in the mirror. Let's admit it. That's why most of us golf all the time and stay busy and we go out, because we don't want to look in that mirror, because when we do, you're accountable for your life. You're accountable for yourself. You're accountable to changes that you need to make in your life. And there are two things that are going to happen. When you look in the mirror, you're going to either accept that you have to make changes and you're going to have courage because it's fearful. It's scary. Or you're going to ignore it, but that's when the suffering starts. I suffered because I knew I needed to leave and get divorced, and I ignored my soul's calling. When you ignore what you know, you start suffering. So when you go through this, be gentle with yourself. You have to have self-love and self-compassion and not judge yourself, because I judged myself sometimes, and it's already difficult enough. You don't need to do that to yourself. So now that you're in the driver's seat of your own life, congratulations, you chose yourself first. We're heading over towards that happily ever after I was telling you about. But we have to get by fear. We have to pass by fear. And it's a big, big roadblock. It is. I know for me, I didn't leave and get divorced because of fear. For most people, we are not going to reach our highest potential because of fear. That's it, fear. So President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And I agree, except for he didn't know that he also should fear, or I feared, expensive divorce litigation. It's scary, trust me. I had to put a divorce joke in there. All right, so let's look at fear. We have to understand it, disempower it to get around it. So fear is a sensation, it's a feeling. It comes upon us, right? It's triggered by something. It's triggered by your thoughts, believe it or not. Most of the time, it's self-induced by our own thoughts. So yes, someone's going to say, well, what about the survival that kicks in, fight, flight, or freeze? That's true. However, I don't think I'm going to see any of us running down Goodlet Road because a lion escaped from the Naples Zoo chasing you. And if I do see that, I'm going to record it. And I'm also hoping that it's the flight that kicked in for you. But honestly, it's self-induced. It's our thoughts. So we think about the past and something triggers us. We're afraid. We think about our negative self-talk and we become afraid. We think about the future. So much of it is the future. It's about what if not? What if this happens to me? What if it doesn't happen to me? It's the worry and anxiety that we all have. Well, Eckhart Tolle, this amazing person with this amazing concept, talked about the power of now. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I love this concept. It changed my life. And he says that there's no such thing as the future or the past. They both exist in our minds only. They're thoughts. The only moment in time as a human that we will actually ever experience is right here, right now. So, 10 minutes after my talk, when you're saying, oh, that was good, it's still going to be the present moment. Tomorrow, when you wake up and you're talking about how you had a fun time today, it's going to be the present moment. So our entire life is just a continuous present moment that we experience. When you realize that, you're like, wow. Because I used to spend so much time in my head. So this concept not only allowed me to go by fear, it also allowed me to experience my life more, to be present and aware, right here. Because this is the moment of power. This is when you make conscious decisions and choices for your life, right here in the present moment. So, when we understand that and we use this concept, it will help you maneuver around fear. And after fear, we're going to head to happily ever after, like I promised. But we have to look at reveal true happiness. So what is reveal true happiness? I say reveal because we're showing you something or we're finding something that's been there already. That's why it's reveal. True inner happiness is always with us. It's internally generated. It's kind of a spiritual experience, like I experienced when I said I surrendered. We feel this attitude of gratitude just for existing. It's being happy about your life without needing anything outside of yourself. It's that connection to consciousness. It's knowing that you're enough just as you are. You need nothing else. So that is true inner happiness. And that is the happiness is an inside job. If he and I only really knew what it meant and did the inner work to reveal this to ourselves. But I will say that most of us are living happiness is an outside job. And I'll tell you why, including myself. Because we love doing things to make ourselves happy. I get a mani-pedi, it makes me happy. You hang out with friends who make you laugh, it makes you happy. You go on vacation, you buy a car, it makes you happy. You experience achievements and successes, it makes you happy. The problem is all of that is conditional, which means you always need another hit of it for the happiness to continue. That's why you hear people say things like, oh, just that one thing that will bring me true happiness, whether it's the retirement or if it's the dream home, the love of your life. You're always looking for something else because it's really not true happiness. So true happiness is an inside job. My grandfather used to always tell me that. He used to say, be happy. If I only knew he was as smart as the Dalai Lama, who also says, he says it's part of human purpose, our human purpose to be happy. So, this is what I'm teaching my daughter. It is. Because for me, if you have true inner happiness and you enjoy all your outer happiness, I know I want it all. What an amazing way to live. And when you know thyself, when you know this true inner happiness, the authentic you, and that's the state that you live your life in, unconditional self-love is just the automatic side effect. And I realized this for myself, and this is what I did realize from my midlife adversity, and this is what I'm teaching my daughter. Thank you. Thank you.